tonight, the issue is really to examine the power of branding and the usefulness of brands in supporting business competitiveness. We are very privileged tonight to have Mr. Peter Rossi, Managing Director of Greggs Yorkshire and also Managing Director for the group for the Northwest region. So Peter will tell you exactly how it happens on the ground and how to, if you like, give birth to brands and how to make them support the business. But what I will do in the meantime is cover some basics about what our understanding of brands is, the importance of the brands over the last 20 years or so, particularly, and what impact brands can have on the business. Let me just kick off by saying that brands are about trust and building consumer confidence. And as this quote says, in business you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. The customer is bartering with you all the time. He has expectations. You have undertakings. You have pledges. You have commitments. You have drives for creating loyalty. And really, based on this bartering principle, you create the trust factor. And that's really the pursuit of excellence. It's really how to tickle the customer, how to, if you like, get their minds heavily focused on what you do, and how to generate their commitment to you and to your brand. When we talk about the brand, obviously we are moving away from the product and the commodity, because that is really the license for you to practice, you know. Products and services are very similar nowadays. You know, you buy a car, you will see that most of the cars have got similar features. You go to a bank and you will see that the service they provide you is very similar to other banks. They are all buying into the same technology and they are all buying into the same methodologies. So brands are on top and above of the products and the services. And as this quote says, products are created in factories while the brands are created in the minds, and particularly in the minds of the customer. So at the end of the day, and in order not to make it heavy for you, a brand is really what reverberates in the mind of the consumer. So it's that relationship, that rapport, that process of communication that we develop with the customers. We invest in brands from a long-term perspective, because once you possess the attention and the commitment of the customer, you want them to stay with you for a long time. If you remember last week, I was telling you that about customer loyalty and retention, the more they stay with you, every 5 years of customer loyalty with you has got, if you like, an impact on your profitability and your turnover to a certain extent. And then as that loyalty factor goes beyond the 5 years, you will see that it's exponential, because the commitment is more transparent and more committed in that sense. So we're not just talking about an image in an abstract, basically. As the bottom bit of this slide says, brands are small pieces of real estate in a consumer mind, because you get attached, you get emotionally, if you like, committed to that image, to the logo, to the signs, to what they stand for. And that's really the challenge. So the relationship has to be based on a lot of parameters. You know, at the baseline, as I said, is the product or the service. But the product and the service does not create the emotional attachment. The emotional attachment is the innovativeness, the empathy, the exaggerated attention you give to the customer by making sure that, you know, you are working for them, by the pledges you make to them, by the way you set your business parameters to suit their lifestyle, to suit their thoughts, at the political level, for instance. I mean, you know, there's a lot of sensitivity now from the consumer movement about green issues and about human rights. And I think a lot of big brands started to pay attention to that, whether it's Nike, whether it's Levi Strauss, whether it's the chemical industry like ICI, whether it's the airline, they started to pay attention to that, because the consumer might love you and they might trust what you do for them, but they might get very easily upset with you if you have a particular stance that doesn't fit in their ethics and their beliefs. If you exploit labor, for example, if you work in Southeast Asia and because it's cheaper, you exploit labor and you employ people who are under the age of 16, what have you, and so on. So that's really where we are heading towards with a brand. So the importance is really, if you like, creating the awareness on a continuous basis to show the customer that you really can be trusted, because you are giving them true differentiation. You're giving them good value for money. You are giving them the enhancement that nobody else can. And you are, as I said, if you like, tickling their emotional side. So that's the identity bit of the brand. It's distinguishing the offerings from any other competitor. When people see the image or they see the brand, they will immediately, if you see Sony, you will say, I know I have bought quality, and I know I have bought something that is user-friendly, and I know that I have bought something that is entertaining, that is attractive from a design point of view, okay? If you buy a Nike pair of shoes, you will say, I know I have bought something that will make me look very elegant, and I know that the shoe at the basic level is going to be very comfortable. I know that it's going to be durable. I know that the way it is made is really with me in mind. So the customer recounts basically an experience that they are going to have because they have built that trust. And that differentiation cannot be bought off the shelf. Values of the brands basically, as I said, it's not the design style or the logo, although they are very important. At the basic level, you need something that will distinguish, something that will differentiate. But the real value is the financial impact that brands can give the businesses. Nowadays, we talk about corporate brands as assets in their own right. So market capitalization nowadays is really looking beyond the physical assets. And in fact, I think a few years ago, I used to say to people that Microsoft as a brand, not Microsoft as a corporation, is worth more than the top 13 conglomerates put together. That sounds crazy, I know. Those of you particularly who are from management, accounting and finance, that is the case. People will invest in Microsoft with their eyes closed because they know that this is a company that invests in R&D, in new innovation. It is dominating the world, and they know what is happening in the computer revolution, the ICT revolution. So that's really the real value of brands. As the founder of Sony, Akio Morita, said, I have always believed that the company name is the life of an enterprise. It carries responsibility and guarantees the quality of the product. Let me just give you a small anecdotal case study. A few years ago, some of you may remember what happened. Unilever launched a product of Persil, a variant of Persil, with a chemical product called, it's a manganese accelerator. This chemical is supposed to work on the stains much faster. So if you put a dirty t-shirt or if you have a heavy stain, it's supposed to remove it, and they will guarantee that for you. That works. The innovation really was superb, was new, first of its kind, except that they didn't really say caution. This will only work if the temperature is below 60 degrees centigrade. Their competitors, Procter & Gamble, obviously, reverse engineering, bought the product, they tested it to destruction, and they found that at the temperature of 60 degrees plus, this manganese accelerator leaves big holes on your t-shirts. So obviously they went on the attack, and they nearly destroyed one of the biggest brands in the world. And let me tell you, when this guy here says it's the life of the enterprise, That was the life of Unilever. There was 2 people with heart attacks. There was a lot of people who were sacked. And the board of Unilever from the top stepped in and to control the life of Persil at a cost of 250 million pounds plus to rescue it. It could have been heading for disaster. So that's what we are talking about. You know, once you move away from the product, you have no excuses because the customer is buying trust. So a strong brand enables you to command the price because price becomes irrelevant. I trust you. You're going to give me value for money. I don't go to the shelves and pick something because it's cheap. I go and buy my favorite brand because it emotionally tickles me and gives me what I want. So you can influence the shift in demand. You can introduce new trends. You can set the pace for competition. And that's power. So let's just very quickly now cover the roots and the road to building, if you like, established brands. And there is a model here that I will share with you based on 5 stages. So you start with the unbranded goods. That's quite understandable. There is no differentiation really because you sell the product on what we call utilitarian purpose because it does the job, okay? You buy a bar of soap because it cleans your hand, but you're not interested in what it says on the box wrapping. Then there is a stage where the brand becomes a reference, so that's where you start to differentiate a little bit in the product side. For example, you make a statement. You say, if you buy this soap, it will be better than that one because that will clean your hands better, okay? But it's still utilitarian. You're talking about physical attributes. Then you move to a stage where the brand has a personality. So in addition to the physical attributes, you start to emphasize on the emotional. For example, Ivory soap was very often linked with caring mothers, you know, smooth skin and that kind of thing. Then the brand moves to being an icon. So that's where the customer not only passively receives emotional benefits, but the customer, the consumer starts to have some influence about the brand. They've got extensive knowledge of it. And they basically see themselves living through the brand. Jordan shoes, you know, basketball, you know, it's about confidence, it's about success. When you wear those shoes, you know, you feel like the person himself. Although he didn't produce the shoes, but because the pair of shoes bears his name, he's like an idol, and people live the dream through that, if you like. The Beckham haircut, you know, so you go there and you feel, you know, you are a Beckham. You know, your haircut is probably it's 75% cheaper, but you feel as great as he does, hopefully. The Swatch watch, you know, you wear it Saturday night, or you wear it if you go to a party, birthday party. You wear it because it's your 18th birthday. You wear it because it's a blue strap and it goes very nicely with your best suit. You wear it because it's personality, it's an icon. It makes you really be what you want to be. So you have an influence about what the emotionality of the brand does to you. And then you move to a brand as a company where the association of the customer with a brand is even more overwhelming. For example, you can decide on the customization of what you want. You know, you can pick the bits that you want really to give you a unique feature. We talked the other day, if you remember, about your own Levi's pair of jeans, you know, specially done for you according to how sensitive your skin is. You can choose the fabric, you can choose the color, you can really have it 1 inch longer or 1 inch shorter, and etc., etc., etc. Here I put example IKEA. You can design your own kitchen if you want, or the ATM machines where you are the bank. You know, you can do your statement, you can put some money in, you can withdraw some money, and you can do so many things. It's in your control. So really, that is the, and the last one is really brand as a policy. It's really taking it where you start to influence society. I mean, Body Shop, they don't just sell something that emotionally is very satisfying to the consumer, but I mean, they have been very influential on equal opportunity. They have been influential on human rights. on the animal testing, on issues that have threatened some governments. That's when it becomes very, very serious. So the brand can actually influence policy. These charts are really for you to see that you could grow a brand, if you like, bottom up, all the way to a policy level. And if you look at this chart, here's some examples of basically unbranded goods, reference, personality, icon, and so on and so forth. So that is really the association between a simple product or a service which has got utilitarian physical attributes, all the way to a brand which starts to have the emotional attachment point of view, all the way to a brand where the power of the brand starts to influence other things. In order for us to understand really the behavior of the consumer against those 7 paradigms, basically, we have to look at what happens inside the consumer. Physical attributes don't touch the emotional side at all. Differentiation raises the attention. So if you differentiate on consistency, on quality, on looks and feel, on design, you have the attention of the consumer. Then you move to self-expression, where the consumer starts to have a dialogue with you. They will start to say, I would like these features, please. Then they will start to draw the intangible soft benefits from the brand, where the emotional attachments start to grow. First of all, self-expression, self-identity, means I see myself living that brand. I have a strong attachment bonding with the brand. And self-actualization is that brand is my life, and it's based on the Maslow theory of needs, if you remember, the 5 categories of the Maslow theory. And how basically we do that, it's really by increasing the knowledge of the consumer, the awareness. So from basic product knowledge, we get their recognition that they understand what we are communicating with them, raise their interest. Once they become fully knowledgeable, they will buy in the brand. So 1, 2, 3, 4, that's not easy. Advertising in one subset of doing that, but the advertising is going to be right. You're not just putting an advert, and I'm sure Peter will tell you really the challenges faced with that. Once you adopt the brand, then you move from a passive to an interactive, engaging kind of style where you value added contribution to the brand is immense. And then buying your commitment is really what businesses want. That's the dream at the end of the day. So let's just recap now by saying that brands are not labels, they are not logos, they are about trust. So I put a word there in capital, the word integrity, because at the end of the day, that's what brings trust. If I go to Body Shop and not go to Tesco or Asda to buy some toiletries or some personal products, is because I am a Body Shop kind of mindset, a human being. I share the same ethics, I have the same values. And as long as Body Shop continues to behave in the way that I want, then they will have my loyalty, because I know everything about them and they have got my seal of approval. Once they deviate from that, we divorce, we part company, and it's very hurtful and very painful. This is the example of Arthur Andersen, for example. You remember with the Enron fiasco, because they used basically to sell their brand and their business by saying, we guarantee audit integrity. That's governance. When we come in as internal auditors, our reports are transparent. We would have scrutinized everything about the business, and we present our auditor to the board and to the external basically agencies, to the investors. They buy our trust because we are Arthur Andersen, we are nobody else. As soon as that has been compromised, they lost everything. They lost their life. And you know what happened? The demise of Arthur Andersen, just as an example. And you find this, if you remember Ratner Jewelry a few years ago, when the chairman of this very successful then brand. You know, he stands in public at a platform, the Institute of Directors Conference, and he really upset millions of consumers by saying, what you buy from us is rubbish. Overnight, it didn't take 24 hours, you know, for the life of a business that took generations to build to disappear. So the equity is really what the diamond is. That's really what the customer sees. And this chart is very busy. I'm not going to explain it in detail. What distinguishes a brand A and a brand B? First of all, it's the equity, as I said. That equity, if you like, has to be clearly defined. If you look at the middle portion here, the customer sees that maybe brand A, if you like, is better because the product quality is better. They can trust the manufacturer more. There's more value for money, and there is a range that they can choose from to suit their own needs. So that's what you build. And then the pledges that you make to the customer, i.e. the customer advocacy. If you look at the third side of the slide, it's really if you like, what you sell to the customer advocacy, the customer centricity, as we called it. You know, you know, guarantee, you give guarantee, you know, you deal with complaints, you are very responsive, your service is unique, you know, etc., etc., etc. You build that equity, and as long as the customer can measure this and they can feel they're getting that value for money, then they trust you will be very strong. So three things that really help with brand equity. One is what you're offering. Okay, you promise through advertising, you know, you make special promotions, and you demonstrate physically that your products are improved and enhanced. You design really to customer requirements, you put in quality, you put in consistency, you put in a touch of uniqueness and innovation and so on. The perception about the product. Then there is the perception about your own company. You know, how the knowledge building about you as a corporation, the facts about your business, the transparency, seeing how you are doing on the market, the competitive strengths, understanding a little bit about your values, your organizational values, the culture, and how you position yourself externally, how you drive your business with quality, and the service support, and etc., etc. So, in other words, the perception of the company is we know this business inside out. You know, the more you put in towards the customer education about that, the more you're helping with your brand equity. And then the self is really, if you like, about, you know, what they as customers are getting in relation to other customers, and that's the image bit. You've moved beyond the product. You're now really working on the loyalty and the retention side of the customer. So what makes brands successful? First of all, understanding how your customers perceive your products and services, what attributes of what you give them they associate very strongly with. Some like the design, some like the taste, some like the look and feel, some like your commitment to the environment and your recycling strategy. Some customers, excuse the term, I mean, my colleague Peter Fairclough used to say, customers are promiscuous, but also customers are curious. You know, they basically are not the same. One size fits all is no longer valid nowadays. Their understanding of the competitive set, basically, what value for money do they get in relation to your competitors? You must remind the customer, you know, that to prevent them from switching or even being curious about your competitors. Making sure that the customers and the organization perceptions align. If there is a disconnect or there is a perception which, you know, basically creates the gap, I think that will be a sign of danger. You know, if you, as I said, Sony is Sony. If you fly British Airways, you know, they know what to expect. They know how the company's ethos works. They know what kind of emphasis they have on service. They know what emphasis there is on professionalism, etc., etc. I mean, as an anecdote, we had one of the professors that we work with recently, we wanted to fly him from Colorado to Dubai, and business class ticket, flexible ticket. We booked him on Emirates because Emirates don't fly from the States. We booked him Emirates from London to Dubai, and I think we booked him British Airways from Denver to London. He said, no, I only fly United Airlines. We said, okay, no problems. Just book yourself in and let us finalize. His ticket came to 53,000 dirhams, which is very, very, very expensive. The ticket with British Airways and Emirates, two very good airlines, was much cheaper. It was £1,800 for a business class ticket. He was adamant. He says, why are you so obsessed with flying United Airlines? He says, because if I get stuck, they will make sure I get home. I said, British Airways will do that. Emirates will do that. They'll book you in a 5-star hotel. Your ticket is a full business class flexible ticket. But he wouldn't have it. He missed our annual meeting because he was adamant that nothing else will do except United Airlines. So I am very curious about United Airlines. I have to find an excuse to fly them. But that is really, maybe he's got a strong bonding, strong connection. He's obsessed with the brand. He's obsessed. So I can't fault him from that point of view. I'm just saying it as an anecdote. Understanding how people perceive the category and your position in it. I mean, understanding basically how what you're offering to the customer out there is doing to their emotional attachment to the brand and to the company, and how that tickles them at various levels. And I think it's very important because then you know that you understand the depth of customers and consumers' choice and consumer loyalty. Just to finalize now, because Peter is going to really take you through that, how to build a brand. I think this is a standard, basically strategy. Start with the vision and purpose, because remember, identity really is a precursor to the image. The image is perceived outside. It's what the customer judges you on, the perception. But the identity is the internal task of building it. So your values, your strategies, the purpose of the organization. I mean, I think it was one of the pharmaceutical companies. Their mission was to eradicate human disease. They didn't say to sell drugs, and that's our endeavor. If you look at the mission of 3M, I mean, it's all about innovation. And so on and so forth. So you go back to those very basics, but they're fundamentals. They remind people about history and their various legacies and the generations of consumers that they've helped over the years. And so that's important. Brand strategy and management, you need to have a very coherent strategy. Remember those 7 levels that I shared with you, at what stage, what particular side of the consumer and the customer you want to attack and generate benefits from. And then more importantly is really to define in very clear way the equity side of the brand, because that's the trust factor. Brand learning and knowledge is really walking the talk, All of the other 2 stages are about blueprinting. Once you go to the market aggressively, you've got to make it happen. And building the value, building the equity. By serving the customer and building their trust. This is just a very busy chart which tells you bottom up basically how you should proceed with building the growth in terms of equity. There is a little bit of detail there about what to do at each stage. So I will leave that to you, to explore in your own time. Just a couple of interesting models, because I like these C's and M's and S's and what have you. So it's really taking the whole cycle, if you like, by creating a convenience for the customer, i.e. doing something that serves their purpose and their needs, working, if you like, on the content of and the pledge of offering and promise, identifying the emotional needs of customers through customization, taking the brand beyond if you like, the individual, and really looking at environmental factors and other things, key community. Connectivity is one when the customer moves from a passive to a proactive means, continue to serve the customer care and then building that communication rapport. So it's another way of looking at how you do it step by step. This is another model, attracting the attention of the customer, engaging them with the brand away from the product, retaining their loyalty, getting their engagement and learning together, and getting the brand to be the fullness of the brand to relate to their life and everything that that they do. So it's not so much what you do that creates customers' brand experience, but how you do it and how it is perceived. I always say that beauty is always in the eyes of the beholder. So the customer is king. The experience of the customer is the most important factor. This is a quote from Peter Drucker, who says, branding by its nature is not optional. If you do not position yourself in people's minds, they will do it for you, because they will make you remember that they have switched and they have gone to the competition. So, in conclusion, branding is all about trust. So I hope you find this useful.